all thinking, what would Jerry Maguire look like if he were a woman? Well, while I try not to think of Tom Cruise in stilettos, today's woman of impact definitely wanted to step in his shoes and become a sports agent. That was until she caught the eye of a modelling agency and was offered a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to host a travel show. Well, the offer was just too unique to pass up, so with no prior experience, she turned her back on her law school education and went for it. In less than 3 years, she visited over 25 countries and pretty much said yes to everything. She swam with sharks, met with the KGB in Russia, paraglided off mountains in Alaska, and even swam with alligators in the Everglades. And guys, that was just her first job. Yep, today's woman of impact has a resume longer than a Thanksgiving dinner grocery list. From becoming the first ever female correspondent for Inside the NFL, to the host of Ninja Warriors, to an MMA commentator, her efforts have garnered her 2 Emmy Awards for sports broadcasting. But if I can quote those cheesy 2 a.m. infomercials for a second, that's not all. She's a mother of 2, wife to the wildly talented actor Wes Chatham, a self-confessed mummy blogger, and on the board of Kids in the Game. And just as about to call her lazy, she adds podcast creator to her list of accomplishments by starting the Art of Broadcasting, which aims to help other women in the industry. So please, join me in welcoming a woman who in my eyes is the epitome of a ninja warrior in life, a true trailblazer, Jenn Brown.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yay, and I had so much fun writing that.
That was awesome. I love it. Thank you.
Your list of accomplishments is insane. You've just gone through so much in your life with, I was going to say reinvention, but it doesn't actually feel like a reinvention. It almost feels like an evolution.
Yeah, I think
so,
that's a great way to say it.
If you want to take me through, I guess, the biggest evolution that you've gone through from studying law to wanting to be a sports agent to then being in front of the camera and doing all these crazy things, what did that evolution take in your mind to overcome?
To get there.
Yeah,
wow.
to get
Yeah.
there.
I mean, I think evolution is a great way to describe it, as you said. I mean, it's taking something and completely throwing out what you thought you were going to do, in your life, and just throwing it out the window and taking a chance on something else. As you said, I was a criminology major. I was on my way to law school, and then there was a chance that happened, and an opportunity presented itself, and I just said, you know what? I think that I'm just going to go this way. The executive producer said, listen, I've been looking for a female to host. I'll offer you a salary. You can be my executive assistant. You can learn the ins and outs of television, and then you can host this show and travel around the world. And then that was where that ultimate decision came from. Okay, do I go to law school, or do I get paid to travel around the world and move to California, which is where I always wanted to be? And I was like, law school will always be there. I told my mom to take all of the letters. I applied to 16 law schools, and I said, just when they come in, just take them and throw them in my closet. I don't want to know. And I left and started filming.
I love that story so much because at that age, I think I would have been utterly shit scared on taking that jump. And even now, I try to differentiate between in the moment of what's going to be fun and then if that actually serves my long-term goals.
Sure.
And sometimes I turn down what's going to be fun in the moment because I feel like, okay, if my long-term goal is X, Y, and Z, is this moment going to take me there, yes or no? And sometimes I say no to it.
Yeah.
But you didn't, and that's kind of led you what's on this path. So how do you weigh the options between the now, the future, what you want out of life?
If my path was to go to law school, leaving to go travel around the world to host a TV show was probably not staying on that path.
Right.
But it was a lot more fun, and it was a lot of fun. And I had a long talk with my mom, who's my mentor and my best friend, and we talked it through, and I just said, law school, I could still go to law school. Well, why don't I go take a shot and see? And what was so great about the opportunity was I kind of got to come into being at the forefront of high definition and just really learning the ins and outs of television, and I just fell in love with it. I think that every moment in life, you just sit back and you have to, in that moment, make a decision and kind of own it and make the best of it. And it worked out, I guess, pretty well. So being willing to take a chance on something that's different than what you ever thought you would do.
Yeah, that's one thing you say a lot. Like you don't put too much emphasis or pressure on making decisions. Obviously, for those of you at home, me and Jenn are very good friends. And that's one thing that comes up a lot in our discussions where you're like, I just make it work.
I think to key in on the question of my mental attitude, I have just learned over the years that, I don't know, I'm a big believer in the power of the mind. And I've told you that before. And it's like you can be in control of how you feel about any situation. And I have seen and observed where there's, people who could take a situation and it can get them down, or they can just harp on the negative or focus on that. I just haven't, why do that? That's my personal belief, is like, all right, this is what I'm dealing with today or this month or whatever. And I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to make the best of it. And that's a big philosophy in my life is, through all the things that I've gone through, and ups and downs and lefts and rights, I can honestly say that I look back and everything has happened and been exactly, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and everything's happened for a reason. And I can take peace in that, and just knowing that every situation is just say, hey, okay, this is what I'm supposed to deal with today. Let's figure it out.
I love that, and you do it with such a smile on your face and like this sweet voice. What advice would you give somebody that is in that moment feeling down on themselves, not able to see the positivity or the up in that situation?
My advice would be is to try to take a step back and think things through, because I think a lot of times emotional decisions or feelings tied with a situation come from like immediate, like how you feel in that moment. But if you can take a moment to pause, take a breath and think about it and really think it through and go, okay, so this is happening. Okay, I'm going into labor at 6 weeks early, and my husband, it's 8:30 at night, 9:30 at night in Toronto, and he's supposed to film tomorrow. And how do I get him here? But that doesn't get him there any faster. And I know, I guess it's easier said than done, but I guess that would be my advice, is just in a situation that presents itself, is just to take a moment and really think it through. And I think that if you just separate yourself out, take a breath, you can figure out another way to look at it.
I always believe you get what you focus on.
Sure.
Right? You were
Yeah,
saying
I
the
believe
power
that.
of the mind. It's
Yeah.
like if you're focusing on, he's not here, I'm all alone, I can't believe my first child, or I'm giving birth without my husband here, then it's going to make you feel a certain way. But if you focus on the fact that you're in hospital,
we'll figure it out. I've got my friends here, he'll make it when he can. He called the producers at midnight or whatever time it was and was like, hey, she's going to labor. And they're like, we need you to stay and shoot like this one scene, because like they had new director coming in, it was the end of an episode, and they're like, if you leave, it'll completely, like, we have nothing else we can shoot. And I was like, do it, babe, you're gonna be fine, we'll make it, you'll make it. I encouraged him to stay, and he's like, no, I'll just get on a plane. I'm like, no, like, I don't even know what that means, repercussions of you not being on set, like, you'll make it, because I did think he was gonna make it, and he didn't make it. Poor guy, like walking on the plane. He's like, I'm gonna make it. I'm like, you're not gonna make it.
What made you be that encouraging wife, though? Like, because you're clearly putting his needs almost before yours, which I think is beautiful, by the way, and very difficult to maintain, I think, and juggle and to keep that balance right for yourself. But yeah, how do you?
Well, I guess, I'm just so appreciative that he has a job and can work for our family. And that is, you sign up for certain things when, he's gone 6 to 7 months out of the year filming. Of course, he comes home when he can. But I also, like, where that could be a negative thing, right? People are like, how do you deal with that? Your husband's never home, and and I'm like, no, but the way I look at it is like, we're so blessed. Like, he's got a great job and he gets to do what he loves, and we figure it out. Like, and that's the whole thing of the way to look at it, is I could either look at it where it's like, I can't believe he's not here, and you look at and focus at the negative, or you can flip it and look at the positive, and that's a whole better way to wake up in the morning. Being appreciative and thankful for something, rather than taking a great opportunity and thinking about the negative side of things.
I love that. All right, so do you take that attitude into work as well? I mean, you're an incredible host and commentator, and you've just like done pretty much everything you could possibly imagine. And like, I mean, being the first woman at anything is freaking incredible, and such an honor for you to be able to break that barrier and show other women that it's possible. So in going into the sports world as a female, did you take that attitude where maybe some people didn't welcome you as easily as, if you were a guy?
Yeah.
That kind of, I'll figure it out attitude. Did you take that into your business there as well?
Started with the travel show, and then I kind of found my way to sports, because I love sports so much. But it wasn't something that I had a ton of experience at, and especially initially, I was not a broadcast journalism major. I was a criminology major. I thought I was going to law school. So in terms of the experience chops, especially in the sports world, I really didn't have that to have I guess I would say like a security and knowing what I was doing was the right thing.
You didn't have that security.
Not going in, because I kind of took these opportunities as they became available to me. But when I first got like the big like Thursday night football job where they were like, you're going to be on the sidelines for Thursday night football, and I was like, that is amazing. I've never done sideline before, and for that was something that was like, so there was definitely a bit of, all right, I'm going to figure it out as I go. But there's definitely, when it comes to putting yourself out there in something that you don't have a lot of experience in, it is definitely you question what you're doing. And then also it was in the day and age of when social media was really starting to take on, Twitter and all of that. And so I do a game and then I'd go on Twitter and I'd hear about, whether it was what I was wearing wasn't great, maybe I misspoke something, or oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. So it makes you question and doubt.
In those moments of like where you're questioning, like, I don't really know what I'm doing, or about to step on like in front of the television, so it's not like no one's really going to know it.
I'm about to be in front of millions of people.
It's like on TV.
Sure.
There's no hiding. You've got all these thoughts in your head questioning, like most people would run in the other direction. I love that you didn't, and I love that you didn't listen to the voice.
Sure.
But can you take, let's say there's someone right now at home in that same situation, in their own, world where they're not being welcomed, they're being judged because they're female. They don't necessarily know a lot, right? Because at least if you go in, you know your shit, you can like,
that confidence.
You've got that confidence. But let's say they don't really. What should they be telling themselves right now to overcome that so that it doesn't paralyze them? And I'm obsessed with the fact that fear does paralyze people, because I think that can take you off in one direction or really hold you back, and you've never done anything in your life.
And I mean, I'll be the first to admit, like I had days where I was crying, and I was questioning, like I said, if this is what I was supposed to be doing. We're our own worst critic, right? And when you think about a situation in your head, I think you make it, it's so much more intense, and it's so much way worse than it really is, right? And so I would give that advice in stepping back, get out of your head, and maybe take the advice or talk to someone that you trust about talking through the situation, because chances are it's not as bad as you think it is. And for me, I'm like, it's just TV. And if I just say, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to do the best job that I can do. And each night when I lay my head down on that pillow and say, hey, you know what? I gave it my best. I worked hard. I didn't cut any corners. Then I can live with that. And if I don't get renewed and there's another opportunity, there's someone that's better to replace me or whatever, then that's fine, because I gave it my best. My biggest fear was being caught in a moment where I didn't know something, and I didn't want to ever play into the thing that you would get a lot, especially early on, is like, oh, she's just a female, she doesn't know sports. She doesn't know football, she never played football, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And so because of that, I was like, well, I am going to study, feverishly. I'm going to make sure that I know everything. And I took ownership of it and said, okay, I'm never going to let that happen. I'm not going to let someone say she doesn't know what she's talking about.
I love that. Well, I've got a great quote.
Okay.
Time for quote.
Quote.
And this was actually an article written when you got engaged.
Okay.
So it says, while this is undoubtedly bad news for males all over the sports world, I think this will be great for Brown's career at ESPN. We all know and understand that reporters like Brown, Andrews and Beadle are utilized more for their good looks than for their knowledge about sports. The sad thing is, I guarantee you they have more sports knowledge and information in their right pinky toe than most of us could acquire in our whole lives. Sure, she is still beautiful, but perhaps listeners will stop wondering about their chances of dating her every time they see her and instead listen to what she has to say. What I love.
Wow, I don't know if I ever read that or heard that.
Awesome and horrifying all at the same time, if I'm going to be honest.
Sure.
Because it took you having to get engaged for them people to then go, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't just look at her beauty, and let's actually see and hear what she has to say.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate reality, I think, in the world of I mean, sports broadcasting. I mean, I think that, you know, it's certainly come a long way. I think we've got miles still to go, but I won't act like, you know, when I'm on camera and I don't get messages that are talking about what I'm wearing or this or that, and you know, even there's a ringer on my finger. You know, it's just something that's you kind of, as a woman, you just kind of have learned that that's just the facts of part of the job, and you just, you know, try not to listen to the ones that are weighing in on what you wear or what you look like, and just, you know, take the ones that give you the compliments for saying, hey, that was a really great question you asked them backstage or in the locker room, or, you know, that report, like, I had no idea.
As a woman, once upon a time I thought if I got complimented for my looks, it meant that that's all there was about me. And so I really actually rebelled against it.
Sure.
And then I realized, like, it feels kind of good, but at the same time, I don't want to lean into it because it's a very dangerous world to lean into just the beauty. And I kind of want to transition that. So for you, you know, like I said, you're on TV a lot, you get a lot of compliments for your looks, you're very well educated on the sport at hand. I mean, people love having you, you proved yourself, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to get married and I want to have kids. How did you feel about having a kid in the industry, being on TV, pregnant, and then how did you find people responded to you?
Yeah, well, you know, it is tricky when women are hired to be in this role. This is what you look like, and this is what we're gonna get. Now, I would like to think that that's not a part of it, but the reality is that looks has a very big part of the females that are put into sports, right? So with that said, we as women who want to start a family and have kids, it is a very difficult thing to try to figure out when is the right time, because the history has shown, or personal experiences from me or for others has shown, that you might get pregnant and you don't know if your job's going to be there. And that is, you know, an unfortunate reality that we have to deal with. But you can get back to fighting shape and be back on camera. It doesn't stop you from what you know, right? So if we're getting hired for what we know and how well we cover a sport, it doesn't matter if there's another human in our belly or if we maybe have just had a baby and we're still like getting back into our shape. That really shouldn't stop us from being able to do our job. And unfortunately, I can count on more than one hand of people that I know specifically that have come back and their job has not been there for them. It happened, you know, to me. I lost a job right after having my son, and my first son, Nash, and I do believe that that was because I was pregnant.
So let's take us through it. First of all, did you anticipate, like, so when you got pregnant, did you go, oh, I have to like think about what this does for my career? Was that even a thought?
Sure, yeah. I was working 2 jobs. I was at NFL Network and I was on American Ninja Warrior. I had fear of going in and telling my boss, who was a woman, interestingly enough.
Wow, really?
Only just because she was super supportive and it was great. But there was just that fear of like, what is the perception and what do people think? Now, conversely, with American Ninja Warrior, I didn't tell anyone that I was pregnant. I just didn't want it to get in the way. I didn't want any preferential treatment. I knew that if anything happened and I needed to bring it to someone's attention, I would. But if it didn't need to, I just didn't. I just felt like I didn't need to tell anybody. It was actually at our wrap party where I showed up and I had my belly, and everybody's like, ah, and I'm like, surprise. And so it was a shock and it was a disappointment when, you know, shortly after having my son, I heard that I was not going to be coming back.
You get pregnant, you show up at the wrap party, belly exposed, everyone's super happy, you love everybody there, you go off, you have your baby while it was on hiatus, right? So thinking that's actually perfect timing.
Yeah, perfect timing, actually. And when I had gotten pregnant, I remember doing the math. I'm like, okay, because it was my second year on the show. I was like, okay, you know, well, we'll wrap in July. You know, he's due at the end of December. We're set to go back in like February. We were going to travel someone, bring the baby. Like, you know, you can, in today's day and age, you can figure that out. I had a great feeling. We wrapped the show. It was our best numbers. All the feedback that I had gotten, you know, was positive, and emails. And one of my friends was one of the execs on the show from NBC. I had a handwritten letter saying, hey, you were so great. You know, one of the big reasons of why our success was this year was because of you. Thank you so much. See you next year. Like, I had no expectation that any of that would be changing. And I got a call, and it was my friend, and he said, hey, listen, you know, I just wanted to kind of give you this heads up. Sometimes this happens on a show, but we are actually kind of looking at maybe thinking about someone else. It doesn't mean you don't have the job, but just as sometimes they do this with shows, you know, they want to maybe look at other people just to make sure that it's what they want. I mean, it was a shock, and I was like, okay, well, are they, you know, is all of us getting like, you know, potentially recast? They're like, no, you know, it's just, they're just looking at the female role. And so I remember walking away being like, is this a technical thing, or is this maybe like something I should be worried about? And then I'll never forget, like, my good friend who was my makeup artist on the show was at NFL, and she called me like a week and a half later. She's like, you know, one of the girls is in here that's, you know, a reporter or, you know, an anchor, and she says that she got a call to maybe audition for Ninja Warrior. And I was like, whoa. Okay, this is real. So I felt the need. I was like, well, what has changed? I'm like, well, I just had a baby. Okay, like, let me reassure them. I was like, listen, I've got it figured out. Don't worry about me. I've got someone that can help with the child, and I'm getting back in fighting shape in terms of, you know, fitness and all of that. Like, nothing will change. And I'll never forget when I got that call and they told me that I was not coming back. And it was a call, and it was with my friend and two of the executive producers, and just over and over they kept on saying, this has nothing to do with you. This has nothing to do with your performance. We thought you were fantastic. Sometimes they just want to switch things up. And I was crying, and, you know, it was so hard. And I was just like, wow, like, you know, I even, you know, just, it was so hard because I had never gotten any feedback that anything was amiss, that I could have been better. I had heard off the record that it was someone high up who kind of made a comment about my appearance and said, we can find someone that's kind of younger and hotter. All of the feedback I got was like, everything was great. I've never talked about it. And when you asked me about it earlier today, my initial response was to think about how to politically talk about it, but not say too much and not offend anyone. Why should I be apologetic, and why should I try not to offend as a woman when I feel like, you know, I was kind of wronged in that situation? And so here in this moment, like, hopefully other women can hear real reality of this world. I guess if I was going to take a positive spin on it, while it was at that time the hardest thing and it was my favorite show, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now because of everything that's happened in my past. But it is, you know, it's unfortunate to have to feel when being wronged that you have to worry about, you know, not offending anyone or worry about retaliation for your job.
Yeah.
I called my one friend, my good friend who knew about it, on my way over, and she's like, are you sure you want to? She's like, you'll probably never work for NBC again, you know, if you say something like this. And I just said, you know, that doesn't matter. I think there's like a bigger story in this that hopefully can help women.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that, hun. You having just such courage to speak out, knowing that there could be a, you know, knock-on effect. I hopefully don't think that this will have a knock-on effect in your career, because that would be horrifying. I think it's time that women do start speaking out about this type of thing, and you having the courage to do that. And I love that you always put a good spin on it, right? It's like you're not speaking about it from a negative standpoint. And there's so many women that at the time would be bitter, they'd be sour. I mean, you even said that you turned down a magazine, came up and asked for an exclusive.
Yeah, right after it happened, a good friend of mine who's in PR, who was privy to everything and knew what had happened, she says, one of the magazines was like, they'd like to sit down and tell this story. And same thing in that moment, I was just like, you know, I didn't want to ruffle feathers. I didn't want, like, because I love the show and everybody there was so great. It was some person high up who I'd never even met making a decision and not, you know, not there in production and seeing how hard I work or what, you know, how much effort I put into what my role in that job and how much it meant to me. But I chose not to talk about it. Also because I didn't know what my next job was going to be after that. And so you don't want to be that person that out there, the girl that like left a show and was sour. And I also wanted there to be positivity around the show. I thought the show was great. I still think the show is great and it does amazing. And I didn't want to take away from that either because it wasn't about me. And it's still not in this moment. I guess to spin it back around to like having family and kids, and this would be my message to women, right? My message in that, the takeaway from that is it probably is never going to feel like the right time. And don't let a job impact what's important to you, and just do what's best for you. Because at the end of the day, like you said, you think about like when I'm old, like that job's not going to be there. It's my kids and my family that's going to be there, and that's what's important to me. And so while it might seem like it was a dreary result, I actually can sit here in this moment and say, I wouldn't change it. I can honestly say right now, I'm okay with that, and I'm better for it. My life is better for it.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is. I completely agree. But I just love that you weren't spiteful about it, right? Like, there's so many people that in that moment, given the opportunity, right? Magazine comes up out and is like, hey, you want to tell your story?
Yeah.
And you feel hard done by. How do you not just spill the beans? I mean, there's a big difference between something you know you should do and then just your instinct to be like, I want to lash back because like I'm a woman, I just had a baby, like I can't believe that I'm getting fired for this. How do you not lash back?
What you have to remember too is we can say that here in this moment around the Me Too, there's a lot of positive support about women speaking out. But to be honest, a woman who comes out and says something like that, very vocal, it becomes a stigma that's attached to you. It's still kind of a man's world in this business. And so if a story like that follows me to trying to get my next job, like it was a sit down and me and my husband, and he's like, is that the story you want to tell? How is that going to affect your career? You know, and we had to like sit there and think about it. It was a real decision as a family of what the possible repercussions could be from going public with a story like that, and the negative spin of what it would be for the show. And I kind of just wanted to walk away and put it behind me and move on.
Did it affect your identity in any way?
It just made me think about kind of what's important and put priorities on things. And while that show was important for me in the moment, for my job and what I love, but like I had a new baby. So you almost don't have time to let it affect you. You kind of just want to move on, put your head down, and you know, kind of just the theme of what we talked about is like spin it in the positive, figure out how to move on. That happened. Now how do we deal with it and find a positive way and move forward?
That's amazing. Thank you so much for speaking out about it. Like it's, I think, you know, very important for more and more women to do that. And I know that, you know, you haven't said it out in public before, so appreciate you saying that here. So since even when you've had kids, you've really gone down the path of like wellness, looking into nutrition for your kids, looking into what's good for them and what isn't, and really kind of wanting to be this all knowledgeable mother. And I love that because growing up for me, everything was like, well, your mum says so you have to do it. And then when I'd ask my mum why, she'd be like, I don't know, it's like my mum told me, right? Yeah, exactly. But you almost went into parenthood like, I'm going to figure things out, I'm going to learn things for myself. How do you empower other women to do the same? And what have you found in that process that has kind of really led you to now being a mummy blogger and really talking openly about, you know, being a mother in this day and age?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just being a mom, like the shift of like I told you, I would research the football and I want to know everything about it. Like it just took a shift to being a mom, and I was like, okay, what? Like, because I'm like, I don't know anything about this, you know. And so I recognized that it was the fear of like getting it wrong and not knowing. You get the things that are handed down from our parents, and I don't want to like act like I'm not listening and then doing my own thing. And I have to say that you get a lot of credit in my book from just being friends with you and knowing what you guys did with Quest, and then with, you know, all just following you. Like it's just opened my eyes to the other things that are out there. So it just forced me to want to really say, okay, if, you know, we're going to raise kids, so what's the best way? And as you're just figuring it out, but not having any experience to draw on. And so for me, I've just tried to kind of pick and choose and do a lot of research and then, you know, try to apply it. It's not easy. By no means do I have it figured out, but I'll try to share like some of the little things that I learned along the way of like mom hacking, whether it's technology or nutrition or, you know, health. It's trying to figure out how to do that and trying to share it with other moms and learning along the way.
Yeah. I never put together the pieces of the fact that when you're scared of something or when you're entering a new zone, you're just like, I need to find out as much information as possible. It's kind of like as if that's your safety net.
Yeah. I think that is it probably, if you want to like get, Freudian on it, like I was always like the perfectionist kid, like the class president, always wanted to get good grades. I always wanted to make my mom proud. I never wanted to be in a situation where I didn't know something that was being talked about. Sometimes it's a selfish way of just wanting to not be in a situation where I don't know something. But then, with the kids, it's like I want to raise two healthy, good, little boys, and how best can I do that?
But I love that it doesn't stop you, right? Most people are like, I don't really know that, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
You almost still jump in with 2 feet, like you did with the sharks.
Yes.
Even like they're circling around you, you just still went in.
Go for it.
I love that. Like, as I was saying, it's kind of like that little bit of safety net of like, okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try and get as much information as I possibly can. But you still go for it.
What's the worst that could happen,
Yeah.
right?
Get eaten by a shark.
Well, that's probably, I would probably rethink jumping in with sharks now that I'm a mother. But I think we take ourselves too serious sometimes. And I think that if you just say, hey, look, this is life. You figure it out as you go. If you just take as the goods and the bads and just know that they're going to come, sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes things are going to be bad.
Yeah.
And just roll with it.
I like that. Yeah, I think a big key though is to make sure that when you try something new that you don't put so much pressure on yourself to be perfect the first time. And I think that's where it stops people from trying as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that though. I mean, there is a true perfectionist side of me. I'm that person that will not finish a project or even sometimes start something because it has to be so perfect to start and then I just don't do it. Like, like my art of broadcasting and everything, like I've been, I've got, here's what's funny. I've got 6 episodes in the can already and I still haven't launched it.
Oh, you've got to launch it, woman.
I know.
You just got to do it.
There is the negative side of the perfectionist and wanting things to, the control freak side of me a little bit where, you've got to let go. You've got to be willing to let go. And, so sometimes that perfection can stop you from starting. Well, I'm still figuring that part out.
I had to let go of it because it's paralyzing.
Yeah.
So even doing this show, our 2nd episode or 3rd episode that we shot, our audio cut out halfway through the interview and I didn't know until the next day.
Oh, no.
And my team came and said to me, Lisa, the interview you did, we've only got half of it. So I was like, what do we do? We're going back to like the perfectionism in me. I want the show to be great. I feel like I've got, a reputation, especially because of Tom and because he's such a good host. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna like mess up, I'm gonna fall flat on my face. But I was like, I can't let that stop me, right? I can't compare myself to Tom. I can't let, if I fall on my face, stop me. And so with that episode at the end, I literally just like straight to camera, I just owned it and I was like, guys, we messed up. I've done like 200-300 shows at this point in my life and I still, we still mess up audio. It's gonna happen, right? And so almost by saying that out loud, by putting it out, I'm gonna release it as is. I wanted to show people that no matter what mistakes you make, it doesn't matter because you can learn from them. But you know that, you're saying but you still don't do it. What is that difference then between knowing it and then actually acting on it?
It is tough. And I am so guilty of it. I am like the paralysis by analysis. Right. And so that's why I, with the Art of Broadcasting podcast, like I actually envisioned it to be more of a, online live webinar series and things like that. But I had so many ideas and then I was like, I just need to start. And so I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. That's the easiest way. It'll be, I went and got the gear, I did it. But still it's funny because, I've got 6 in the can, but I'm like, I feel like we need to get a couple more in. And then, and like it's that fear of failure. I think ultimately, and that fear of, and I think you owned it and said it so right, and I need to take a chapter out of that book because you can't be perfect and it doesn't need to be, and actually it's more humanizing and relatable.
I was about to say
have failure or to make a mistake.
You need to stop being perfect, woman, and you just need to get it out.
I know.
Is the truth.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
You're going to get it out. It's going to crush. It's going to be amazing. Everything you do, you've kind of gone in not really knowing, but trying to figure it out. How do you accept yourself? Like self-love is a very big thing right now. Hearing about it a lot on social. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with self-love. Like, I personally find a little bit of negativity helps me. It pushes me to get better. But I know that some people actually believe that that can hinder your self-esteem. You should love yourself no matter what. Do you have a way of seeing that?
I think, I would say I struggle with being, complete self-love. I think that we as women, or just people in general, will say, there's always, I feel like, something that you'll focus on. I would definitely say I'm guilty of, not always being my biggest champion, but also with saying that, I also will own it. So, I can be the first to, if I make a mistake, like let's say in my job doing something, if I, most of the time I can just brush it off. But like if I truly I can own if I hey, you know what? There was that one article that probably I didn't read, and maybe I would have learned that this, that, and the other, whatever could have happened. Owning it. But I also think it's okay. I'm okay with. I think that's what makes me. If I focus on it a little bit, it makes me work harder to get better.
That's what I was going to say. How do you find that to be okay, right? Because some people, it completely wrecks them. They can't start anything. They don't feel good about themselves.
Yeah, I use it as a motivator. I just posted the other day on social media. It was a picture of me when I was the Under Armour model, right? So I used to do Under Armour fitness modeling, and I definitely don't look like that anymore. And I threw it up as a throwback because I was like, back in the day, I used to take pictures of other people as my little motivation board of fitness or whatever. And then I was like, you know what, now I just use a picture of myself and this is where I want to get to. And I use that because I think it's more realistic to think about trying to get back to what I used to look like rather than Carrie Underwood's legs or whatever it might have been.
That was
Don't get me wrong, she's got great legs. But, it was more of a motivator for me to say, hey, this is how I want to get, using that to get back to where I want. I use it as a motivator. I don't know how to tell someone how to do it for themselves. All I would say is you're in the moment right now where you're supposed to be. You've dealt with things probably way far worse, and you'll probably deal with things even more worse down the line. And so I think that if you can just I think it's that taking that breath and taking a step back and just owning it, using it to get better. You're your worst kind of own critic, really.
You wouldn't speak negatively to your friend like you do with yourself, right? It's like you beat yourself up about things that are oh, you shouldn't have done that. And it's like you would never talk to your friend like that. You would never talk to your spouse like that. So why do you talk to yourself like that?
Yeah, that's so well said.
So it's like, what advice would you give your friend, not what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, well, before I ask my last question, where can people find you online and what date can they find your podcast?
Okay, theartofbroadcasting.com is where they can find out about the podcast, and I'm hoping to have it up by mid-October. And I'm at Jenn Brown TV on social, and you can kind of see my crazy kids.
That's amazing.
I appreciate you having me. Oh, we've got another question, right?
Yeah, I want to ask you, so what's your superpower?
All right, my superpower. I would say the power of optimism. Take something and find the best way to make it work and the positive spin in it. So my superpower would be optimism.
I love that. I love that. Well, guys, if you're not following this woman, you've definitely got to go check her out. Her stuff is amazing, all the way back from when she was swimming with sharks to up until now. You can just see her doing absolutely incredible stuff, from stuff with her kids, stuff with new shows, and now her podcast. Definitely got to go follow her. And just remember, guys, that no matter what, you're going to have fails, you're going to have fears, there are going to be problems in your life. But as long as you stay optimistic and share the powers like this woman has, literally there's no stopping you. So be positive, focus on the good stuff, not on the negative.
Thank you so much.
So if you're not already, guys, subscribe, click that button down below, and until next time, go be the superhero of your own life. What up, guys? Lisa here. Thanks so much for watching this episode. And if you haven't already subscribed, click that little button right in front of you. Click, click, click away. We release episodes every Wednesday, so be sure to get notified. Till next time, go be the hero of your own life.